Congrats for looking so good. We're going to get into a beautiful sport now, but it's one with a depressingly long history of flaunting the rules. We're talking about professional road cycling. Tour de France, Giro d'Italia, the big leagues, big money, big fan base, big temptation. I'm going to be talking with Canada's own bright new star on the cycling scene. Michael Rusty Woods had a breakout performance at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide, Australia, and that's exactly where I caught up with him. Now, Michael, I need to know what to call you because no one ever asked me what I want to be called. I have so many names, so I want to know. Rusty, Mike, Michael, do we make up a new nickname for you on the show? What should I call you?
You can call me whatever you like, but a lot of my friends call me either Woodsy or Mike. You can call me Mike. Go for Mike.
I'm going to do Mike, and then every now and then I'll drop a Woodsy. Does that work?
That's great.
Cool. Now, you were born in Ottawa. You are,
correct.
right, like I said, a professional cyclist. But before that, you were an elite runner, and you've run a sub 4-minute mile. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's some running.
For sure.
On this episode, we're talking about rule bending or ways that athletes try to get an edge in sport. I'm going to start off with a quote from your blog. Racing in the World Tour is like eating extra hot sauce at a dodgy taco stand. It burns, it makes you cry, but once you've eaten it, you're not going back to Frank's Red. Now, I had to laugh because I'm like, hey, what about all the people who love Frank's Red? But I totally get what you're saying, but can you kind of explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so cycling is crazy. It's a crazy sport. It's very inhumane. We do crazy distances over weeks in some cases, and there's a lot of crashing. It hurts. It's not pleasant. The training's really hard. You get sick often because you're putting so many hours in the week. And yeah, it's dangerous. And so there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of sometimes even negativity is associated with this sport because there's so much suffering, and it makes your successes that much more gratifying. Like if you win a bike race, or you have a success in a bike race, or your teammate wins, the fact that you had to overcome all these obstacles makes you enjoy it that much more. And so it's kind of like that hot sauce. Like, Frank's Red has a little bite, but you have something really spicy and it really hurts, but it makes kind of, I don't know, it tapers down the Frank's Red for sure.
No, absolutely. Because I just got back from Belize and I bought some habanero hot sauce. And let me tell you, you're not going back to Frank's Red after you have that. So totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
In hurdles, there's only so many hurdles to go around in the warm-up of a major event. And sometimes one athlete or a block of athletes would take all these hurdles and leave like one or two for like the rest. Like, who's going over 2 hurdles? I need 5 or 6 to warm up. So it's all those little things where people kind of try, like they work within the rules, but they try and keep every advantage for themselves. And I think you're right. It's not just cycling. It's all sports.
One of my favorite ones in running, I had a teammate, Nick Willis, who placed second in the 2008 Olympics, and he used to always tell me he'd try and run as close to the rail as possible on the track, because they actually measure the track 30 centimeters out from the line, apparently. And so if you're running inside, like right on the rail, you're actually running shorter than the 400-meter distance. So like and you can watch him in a race, and every race he runs, he's always so close to the rail. He's tripped over the rail a couple of times because he just tries to hug it so much so he can run actually shorter than that assigned distance.
And that to me makes perfect sense. But yeah, I'd be always concerned about the ankle thing. But I mean, it's a risk you take, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to play a game. Are you down?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. It's super easy. So I'm going to throw out some terms that I have found about rule bending in cycling. I don't know what all of them mean, but that's why you're here.
Okay.
Woodsy, is you're going to tell us what they mean. And since you already said that you're in, there's also a catch. You have to use the persona or the voice that I give you to explain it. It can be as long or as short as you want, but you got to use the voice. Cool?
All right. Sounds good.
Drafting?
Drafting, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely drafting.
Okay, so you're going to have to explain what that is to casual fans and novices of cycling, but you're going to use an Australian accent to do it.
For the entire time.
Yeah, you're in Australia. Come on. So what
My
is
Australian
drafting?
accent is so weak. Is so weak. uh, let's see. Drafting is something where you've got to sit behind a rider in front of you, and well, you save roughly 30% of your energy if you're behind a rider riding at roughly 40 kilometers an hour. How's that? How's that?
Clapping. I'm going to ask the engineer to insert clapping sound effects for you. That was outstanding to all the Canadians listening. The Australians
That might be my only accent. Accent I do. It just came to me, I guess, but I don't think it's gonna last.
You are ready for this race here. You're just ready. I can feel it. Can you explain the sticky water bottle? Because all this is new to me. Hearing it.
Okay, so the sticky bottle. Often when you're in a race, you're assigned to go. Especially if you're a domestique, you're assigned to go back to get bottles for your team leader, and the bottles are in a car. So you go back. You have to get the bottles from the car, and this is when it happens most often. But the last bottle that you get is held out the window by your director, who's also driving the car, and what you can do is you can hold on to that bottle a bit longer than you're supposed to, and the driver will rev the engine and kind of slingshot you and kind of like basically give you a bit of a boost. But that one's less frowned upon because you're doing work for the team. But there have been instances, particularly last year, there's a rider named Vincenzo Nibali who was a very strong rider. He's won the multiple Grand Tours, and he was caught on video holding on to his water bottle as the car and his driver just basically drove away from a bunch of riders. So on, like, the helicopter had him just holding this bottle as they're driving 60 kilometers an hour, just leaving a group of riders to bridge up to a group of riders ahead. It was clearly cheating.
Yeah, because I would shake my head and wag my fingers at that guy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and most of us did in the peloton.
And have you ever done it?
Yeah, I have. But there's kind of, cycling's so weird that it's not like this. It's less black and white when it comes to these type of rules. That, like, I've taken a sticky bottle after a really bad crash. I broke my femur in the crash, and I got back on the bike. This was in Poland last season, and yeah, like, in order for me to just get, like, everyone was gone. I was 10 minutes down the road, and in order for me to just kind of get back close to the race, I wasn't going to win the race. It was just to kind of get me to the hotel and not have to ride as far. I held on to the bottle. And
it sounds like that sticky water bottle, like you said, is just simply, it's just an aspect of the sport. Everyone takes that advantage when they can. It's just don't abuse it.
Yeah. Well, like, if I was in contention to actually win the race, I wouldn't do it. That's something that's like a big no. But, like, if you're just, like, literally doing it to survive, like, guys are going to kind of not be too disappointed in you.
And one of the things that I've heard, have you heard of mechanical doping at all?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, can you explain that?
I guess it's been in the last season in particular, it's really come to a head, where there's speculation as to whether riders are putting motors in their bikes, and whether it be in their down tube or whether it be in their wheel, and these motors are actually helping the rider. It's not like a motorcycle, but it's enough that it's going to make a significant difference. People are seeing, like, riders particularly are seeing this as even worse than doping. I mean, I think both are cheating, right? So I think they're both terrible.
I'm trying to figure out where they would put this, because I'm envisioning, like, this V8 turbo at the back and where the spokes are. Can you explain, like, is it a small little thing? Like, are they hiding it?
So what I've read so far is that it's a small, it's pretty small, and it's going to go, if you look at your bike, there's this tube that goes from your seat down to what's called your bottom bracket. And that tube is with these bikes, these carbon fiber bikes, they can get them pretty big, and they're hollow. So there's speculation as to whether the motor, well, not speculation, this happens. There's a motor going into this tube, and what it does is actually turns your bottom bracket, which is where your crank is. Your crank is where your pedals are attached. So that's where it's generating power. The other place that they're seeing this happening is in the rear wheel. So there's actually a little motor in the hub of your wheel that propels you forward.
You also say that 1 year on the world tour is equivalent to 5 regular years lived. Do you think for that reason that cyclists there's more of a temptation to cut corners within the rules?
It's not just cyclists, but yeah, like that's also, I mean, that is one of the things that cyclists who doped and often kind of reference is when they were at their lowest in a race and they're tired and getting beaten quite a bit, or just feeling weak because their bodies were run down mid Grand Tour, which is a Grand Tour is a 3-week stage race, really grueling thing. Like when they were tired, that's when a team would come in and a doctor would come in and say, hey, like it doesn't have to be this hard, and that's when the dope would come out.
You see a lot of them come up with having asthma and they're on Ventolin. Yeah. Is that something that you've kind of...
In cycling, Team Sky, if you look at the rule book, they haven't been cheating, but they're using quite a few therapeutic use exemptions with one of their star riders, Bradley Wiggins, multiple Olympic medalist and Tour de France winner, particularly in the lead up to the year he won the Tour de France. So basically, he was claiming to have had allergy issues, and then with the allergies, he was prescribed a cortisone, which ultimately helped him cut a significant amount of weight, which is, in cycling, because we're going up these big climbs, being light is huge.
You see all the ways that people try and get that razor's edge, which is less than like a fraction of 1%. And sometimes you wonder, like, is it really worth it at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mentioned Team Sky, and Sky's been such a big team, and one of their star riders, Richie Porte, when he was on the team, during the Giro d'Italia, they had him staying in a motorhome just to himself, and it was called the Marginal Gains House, basically. And he stayed in this motorhome by himself at each stage, instead of staying with the rest of the team in the hotel, so that he was less likely to get sick. He was sleeping in the exact same bed every night, and the expense was huge to the team. But they figured that if he was sleeping in the exact same bed every night, if he was a bit more sectioned off from guys who got sick, he'd have that 1% to 2% advantage that would give him an opportunity to win.
You now ride under director Jonathan Vaughters. Now, he raced in the doping era that you mentioned, but he's now a big proponent of clean racing. How would you summarize his thoughts on, taking that edge and cutting those corners within the rules, as much as possible?
He's created this team that's actually, it's been a really fun team to be on for me, because this is the only professional team I've been on. And, there's a real sense of camaraderie amongst the guys. And there's a real sense that we're kind of like doing the right thing. It's special.
That's one of the things I've spoken about a lot, is when it comes to rule bending, doping, whatever you call it, a lot of that is the attitude and the culture of the people around you, whether or not you buy in or you get sucked into it or even introduced to some of those things, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's not necessarily some guy in a back alley with a bag of syringes or horse pills trying to sell them to you for $10 a pop, right? It's the culture that you've created.
So when I came into cycling, there's a much different culture. I was really fortunate to come in post the doping era, but you could still see its effect on the peloton and its effect on the way people thought. And it took me a while to kind of adjust to that and realize that it was a real cultural thing, particularly in the late 90s.